Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Amber, welcome to my channel, and today we are going to be discussing the book As Old as Time, a Disney Twisted Tale by Liz Braswell. So if anybody hasn't seen this particular series yet, Disney Hyperion Publishing has recently come out with a series called Twisted Tales, where it's like an anthology series that takes the concepts and like characters we all know from like the traditional classic Disney movies and mixes them with like hypothetical what if scenarios and like creates a new story out of them. So for example, this one is based on Beauty and the Beast, but instead of being the traditional story, it poses the question, what if Belle's mother was the enchantress, and explores that potential what if scenario. It is very similar to, like, if anybody's familiar with comics, Marvel has a series called What If, where it's like literally these like one-off comics where it's just like a brief exploration into a possible alternate reality. As I do this book discussion and review, I am going to talk about it, go with the assumption that most people are somewhat familiar with the original story. I have actually not seen the original Beauty and the Beast. I mean, I've definitely seen bits and pieces as a kid, but I don't think I've ever sat and like fully properly watched the full original animated version. I have seen the new live action Emma Watson version 2 or 3 times now. But anyways, we're talking about it as though you know the story. A tale as old as time, you know how it goes. So this particular version is told in alternating timelines. It switches from a young Maurice in the past who meets Rosalind, who is Belle's mother, and their life in this enchanted little town, which is like the last town where actual magic folk are allowed to exist and be, Rosalind being like the most powerful enchantress there is. And it shows those two young lovers like meeting and falling in love and starting their life together in this little town and having Belle. And then the story also tells the present day plotline of Belle living in this small provincial little town with no knowledge of magic or her mother. Like the original, in this version, Belle does save Maurice from imprisonment from the Beast in this enchanted castle with its equally enchanted inhabitants. And from there, the story follows as both Belle and the Beast discover the truth about Belle's mother. With Belle having accidentally onset the curse, they must race against the clock to discover all of the Forgotten Kingdom secrets and reverse the curse. So as for some of my thoughts on the book itself, I found it a little bit weird because it felt like, it almost felt like it was being written as a middle grade book, but with some higher ticket vocab words being thrown in to make it feel like it was being written for a larger audience or for like an older audience. So if I had to guess, I would assume that maybe the author Liz Braswell is has prior experience with younger audiences. And it doesn't feel like that in a jarring way. It's just like it's simultaneously written very simply, but also trying to sound very educated with some of the vocabulary that it uses. I will have to say I personally much preferred reading all of the flashback chapters featuring a young Maurice than I did reading Belle's storyline, because in this particular characterization, Belle wasn't the most likable character. And I do think that the book might possibly bank on the idea that you already have a prior nostalgia towards Belle and the story and already liking her. But like I said at the very beginning, I'm only familiar with Emma Watson's characterization, which wasn't bad, but from what I've heard from other people isn't as likable as the original. So I'd say that this characterization is definitely closer to live action than animated, because like at the end of the day, Belle is honestly kind of just a little bit bratty, which doesn't make sense for being, you know, somebody with like a modest background who grows up in a small town, you know, and is more of the outcast. Like, bratty isn't the characterization I would have expected. And it definitely wasn't in a way that like would make me not want to reread the book or would make me not want to recommend the book. I just do wish that she had been a little bit more likable, so I was a little bit more invested in the story on like whether or not they were going to be able to reverse the curse. Because too, there also wasn't a lot of chemistry and development between Belle and the Beast as much as I would have liked for it being a novelization instead of like a 2-hour movie. But when you have a novel and when you're going into so much backstory and detail when it comes to the history and the parents and stuff like that, you should definitely have enough time to be able to like make the relationship work. And again, it didn't feel so forced as to where I'm like, oh, it falls under the case of like insta-love that YA is very famously known for, but I personally would have liked to have seen a little bit more development between the characters, and especially between like Belle and all of the servants of the castle as well, because I feel like she has a really like nice and sweet repartee with them in the film, to where like you actually care about all of the enchanted servants, whereas not as much in the book. And again, like all of this isn't to say that I didn't enjoy reading it. I actually very much did enjoy reading it. Like I definitely don't not recommend the book because I really, really like the concept. And two, like the book does have a much darker and more adult theme behind it than I feel like the films do, which is really fun to see. I like that concept, especially for, you know, all of us who grew up on the Disney generation are now, you know, pretty much adults and older, so it is fun to have that kind of, you know, new potentially like adult content coming at it. I don't want to say like adult content, I just feel like it's not a book that I'm gonna read aloud to a small child, you know? Like it is definitely geared towards teenagers to young adults, I would say. I did actually get the book from my sister-in-law who is, oh god, how old is she? I think she's like 27, 28. So she's like fully an adult and she really, really liked it. Like that's why she had me borrow it, is because she wanted me to read like the Twisted Tales series, because she's been getting super into them lately. So I think it's also fun for her because she is the parent of 2 young children under the age of 10. So it's fun for her to be able, I'm sure, to be able to read these more like adult versions of the stories that like she's watching all the time with her kids. But I do think that it is definitely written in a way that I think would almost do better presented on screen. Like if they were to adapt this into a mini-series on Disney Plus, just do like an hour-long episode for all of the Twisted Tales or something like that, I think would be a really, really fun concept, because I do think it would translate really well on film, especially with some of the descriptions that it gave. I think was a little bit harder to visualize just from reading. Like I said, the whole book does have a bit more of a darker and adult theme to the story until the very end. At the end, it does have a twist that's more that feels very much like it was written for a child. Like the whole book felt like it was aimed at more teenagers and young adults, but then the very last, like the last couple chapters and the very end of the book took a childlike turn that left me kind of disappointed. Like I really just wanted them to commit to the dark, you know, that like not everything is happily ever after, and like, I mean, obviously like you want it to end with a happily ever after. I didn't not want that, but there was just one, I don't know how to explain what I want to say without spoilers. So I'm not going to go too into it. Just somebody needed to die in a certain way, and that's not how it went. And like just once, I wish they would have like committed and made it more of like a Deadpool type kind of ending, where there's like the whole high road, whatever, like, oh, you know, you're a better person, blah, blah, blah. And then instead you just fucking do it. They needed to let the Beast go apeshit, or like let Belle go a little bit crazy or something. and they just didn't let it happen. And they let somebody else do the dirty work, and then they made that an excuse to not like this particular person when they should have used other things as excuses for that. And I know none of this is going to make sense unless you've read the book, but I'm hoping if you've read the book, you get what I'm saying. Like, I just wanted them to commit, and they didn't do it. But overall, oh, before I forget, I do want to mention there is in the last couple of chapters the singular use of the G slur, which for anybody who doesn't know is this word. And I say it because it is a word that is more commonly used in media and in the US, but traditionally it is actually used as a slur towards the Roma people, especially in Europe, where like Europeans are very, very racist towards the Roma people. And so the word did originate as a slur. We didn't quite get that memo in the US. I only know that because I am very close friends with a couple of Roma people. So now we don't use that word around here. And like, it was super, super unnecessary. Like, it was literally like just thrown away used. And I definitely don't think it was used with malicious intent. Like, I absolutely do not think that the author had any idea that it was a racial slur. But that being said, it is mentioned in the book if that is something that is going to bother you. If not, just like be aware that that is the context of the word. Like I said, I don't think it was used with malicious intent at all. I just think it was used as the word as how Americans generally define it and know it as being more of like a nomad and a traveler and that kind of thing, which is not necessarily the case. But other than that, I do think overall the book is fairly enjoyable. Like, I did really enjoy reading. So like, it only took me a couple of days to finish, and honestly, it would have taken me less had I done more binge reading of it. So like, I wouldn't not recommend it, but like I said, I did have all of my complaints, and also like, we don't like the use of racial slurs here. The only reason that I'm not completely condemning it is because culturally in the US, most people are not aware of the history of the word. Overall, I do like the concept behind it, especially the whole hypothetical what if. I think that the Twisted Tales series has a lot of potential, especially for different Disney movies, because a lot of them are actually based on much darker original concepts. I think that this one was a nice hypothetical. I do think that they could have gone a little bit darker with it, and I definitely think that they could have done something different with it, but I don't hate what they did do with it. I would love to hear what other people have to say about it. Maybe I am more biased because like, I wanted them to go darker with it. Like, if they're gonna market it as a twisted tale, like, I want them to go dark. I want them to like not be kid friendly, and maybe that is where I went wrong with my mindset going into it. Maybe I should have been prepared for it to have been kid friendly, so like that way the particular ending wouldn't have been quite as disappointing. In general, it was written really well, even though I do have some thoughts about how it was written. I don't think that necessarily detracted from the reading experience. It was just something of note. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I had a blast hanging out with y'all. Peace.